So welcome everyone to the Picker Center's Food for Thought speaker series. We've been going on for almost a year, so we're glad to have all of you here. Today we're honored to have with us our recent EMPA alum, Tanya Pope, who's going to be discussing Columbia University's Manhattanville Campus, how the Upper Manhattan community benefits. Tanya is a wonderful student. We worked together on our capstone last semester. And we're very glad to have you here, Tanya. So now I'll hand it off to Bill. Before I do that, please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question, and you can put questions in the chat. And as always, this session is recorded and will be uploaded on the Food for Thought speaker series website if you need to access it later. So I'll hand it off to Bill for the intro.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you for all your hard work, along with Valerie, to keep this series going virtually every week since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's very special. For those of you who haven't gone to the website, please go there. All our previous speakers are there with what they talked about, and it's such an impressive group of people. We're so proud to have friends like all of you and all of our speakers. And today is just particularly exciting for me because not only is Tanya one of our graduates and also a colleague here at Columbia University, but she and I have a similar background and involvement in construction and how the construction industry can be a real game changer for people in terms of changing their economic prospects and ultimately the prospects of their current families and generations to come. And what she does at Columbia, her title is Assistant Vice President for University Supplier Diversity. She's been in that area for about 5 years. Previously, she held similar positions in the private sector. She also worked on a variety of positions at New York City's Small Business Services Agency. So she has government, and she's at her own private business, consulting business. So she's been in all three sectors. She has a master's, an MPA from us. She has a master's from Manhattanville College and her undergraduate degree in communications management from Manhattanville as well. So she knows the academic world, she knows the construction world, she knows the business world. And we were talking before we started about the historic, I think the historic significance of the Manhattanville campus and how with people like her, we have used the power and the finance of that project to give opportunities to people who might not have otherwise had those opportunities, both businesses and individuals. And it's really been transformative of Columbia as an institution, I believe, and our role in the upper Manhattan communities, including Harlem, which we sit. So Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to your wisdom and to a discussion.
Okay, so you really got me nervous, Bill, because I hope I can live up to that wonderful introduction. I first want to say I'm going to go through a short presentation, and then I'll open it up for questions, comments, feedback. I do want to thank Professor Emeke and Jeremy and Valerie for inviting me here today. I have a great love for the Picker Center and the EMPA program. It really was an important part of my life, especially when the pandemic hit. So many of my colleagues and I sort of pulled together and were able to get through so much. So I'm going to bring up a presentation. Let's see here. Okay, so I will get started. Thank you again for being here and participating in this presentation, the Manhattanville Campus, how the Upper Manhattan community benefits. My work at Columbia includes many facets of delivering, tracking, and reporting the program impacts and goals and commitments that were designed over a decade ago. I do that with a team. Some of them are here now. Christine Salto, Matt Simon, and Charlene Delacruz. They are dedicated to this work. We have many facets of this project, but I'm primarily going to focus on the aspects of minority, women, and local participation and how the community benefits from our commitments. So the agreements that Columbia signed over 17 years ago were conceived, well, the idea of the Manhattanville campus was conceived about 17 years ago. And we are 12 years into active construction on what is to be a 30-year program. I'm never supposed to talk numbers, but it's estimated to be approximately a $6.8 billion project. And my objective today is to help you understand the project and its conception, and also the goals and commitments that Columbia has made and how we are performing on those goals and commitments. And so a lot of what we talk about is diversity. And when I speak about diversity, to me, it's the greater meaning is to embrace acceptance and respect and provide opportunity to all groups, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or gender. In thinking about how we apply this diversity at Columbia University, we think about it and set goals when we look at our hiring, our buying, our building, and our investment, because every area has room for thought on how to create a more diverse environment. These focuses include women, minorities, and local, which is pretty much what we count. And that's over a 17 zip code area around the university, which I'll share with you shortly. The Manhattanville campus. The picture that you see here is the first building that was completed, the Jerome Elgreen Science Center, and also the project map of the campus itself. In 2003, Columbia began working with leaders in West Harlem, the city, the state, to develop a long-term campus plan, a thoughtfully designed and predictable development blueprint that would provide Columbia with much needed space and also embrace the community in a way that we hadn't done in the past. We also wanted to provide the kind of middle income jobs that New Yorkers had largely been shed in much of New York in the past years, and some of older cities as well. As I mentioned, the new campus will be a group of 17 buildings. You see that here, they're numbered, 14 of which are being built from the ground up. The project area goes from 125th Street at the south to 133rd Street at the north, between Broadway and 12th Avenue. And it's designed to be an open environment with public spaces on most of the ground floors of each building that are open to the community, as well as other areas on the campus that are welcome community activity. The Jerome Elgreen Science Center, which is building 2 here, was the first to be completed in 2014. It's the home of the Mort Zuckerman Mind Brain Behavior Center. And it's a first of its kind research facility with scientists exploring brain research across many disciplines. We've also completed the Lenfest Center for the Arts, which is building 3 here, as well as the Forum, which is building 1. The new Columbia Business School, and we say business school, but it's actually 2 buildings, Site 7 here and Site 6B, is currently under construction, and it's due to open in January of 2022. On the campus, there will be significant facilities, including there's a wellness clinic, a K-12 education center open to the community, and we're currently constructing a food hall on the lower level of Jerome Elgreen, which will open later this year. Give me 1 second. So when we talk about the local community, what are we speaking about? We consider Columbia's local catchment area to be a group of 17 zip codes. They start on the north side of 96th Street because yes, the north side of 96th Street has a different zip code than the south side of 96th Street. And that area goes river to river to the very top of the borough of Manhattan. It also includes the 4 southernmost zip codes in the Bronx. And so we look to these areas to support the university's hiring, our construction, goods, services, and suppliers, as well as workers for our construction and maintenance projects. There are 2 very specific agreements that were created to support the Manhattanville campus. The first is the Declaration of Covenants. As you can see, it was signed on December 14th, 2011. I have provided links. These documents are publicly available on the website. So I'm sure if Jeremy shares this with you, you can have some nighttime reading that will easily put you to sleep. It's a very dense document, but there are over 350 commitments that we have made in support of building the Manhattanville campus. Some of them are well known. We have committed a $76 million fund for community benefits. It's managed by the West Harlem Development Corp. $20 million to support affordable housing in the area. We are paying up to $4 million to fund 2 full-time attorneys that help with housing and legal assistance for West Harlem residents, and a host of other payments that support the area, including $20 million to the Harlem Community Development Corp to help with economic development in Harlem. So this is a very hefty amount that we've committed to support this community and make sure that it grows as we grow. This agreement is managed by my office, and it is reviewed by an independent monitor that's hired by New York State Empire State Development Corp. And quarterly, they come in and look at the numbers to make sure that Columbia is achieving on the commitments that we've made. And once a year, my office writes a report on all of the commitments that have been and what's been delivered to date. There's a second agreement, which is called the Community Benefits Agreement. And this is an agreement that was signed by Lee Bollinger with the West Harlem Development Corp. And it mimics a lot of the benefits that are in the Declaration of Covenants. There are a few that are slightly different, and there are some that are unique. This agreement is managed by the Columbia University Office of Government and Community Affairs. And so if, again, you'd like to read the agreement, it is a public document on our website, and you can go to the link here. The West Harlem Development Corp was created to manage this massive amount of money and commitments and make sure it gets distributed out into the community in a fair and equitable way. It was originally incorporated as the West Harlem Local Development Corp when it began in 2009. And in 2011, it was reincorporated as the West Harlem Development Corp. The organization does 2 rounds of grant funding to local nonprofits in West Harlem each year. One is a small grant round, and another is a large grant round. And if you go to their website, which is shown here, you can see all of the individual organizations that have been funded, what they do, and all of their contact information. So it's very transparent how this money is being granted and used and for what purposes. And it's everything from cultural institutions to economic development, to youth programs, to seniors programs. It runs the gamut. So when we talk about the term MWLBE, that means Minority Women Local Business Enterprise. We use the acronym because that's a mouthful. And as I said, we have goals across the university for achieving a certain number And this is a floor, it's not a ceiling. So we would like to see at least 20% of our staff be minority, women, and local. And our HR department focuses on that. They keep track of it. They have numbers to see how we're doing. We're exceeding that goal. This does not include faculty or researchers. For construction, with construction companies that are minority, women, and local, we have a 35% goal. I apologize, this is an old number. And for workforce, we have a 40% goal, which means 44 out of every 10 workers that walk on our construction sites, our goal is to have them be minority, women, or local. We're exceeding that goal by almost 8 points. So we're closer to 50% than we are 40%. And so almost 1 out of every 2 workers on our sites are minority, women, and local. We also have the Columbia Employment Information Center, which helps local residents find jobs, not just with Columbia, but with other organizations. But more importantly, they play an important role in work readiness. They help residents create their resumes. They do other seminars to help them understand how to interview, and just all of those services are done at no charge. They also hold an annual job fair each year so that the residents can come and see all of the jobs that are available at Columbia and our partners. And the university has also contributed over $60 million to attract diverse faculty since 2010. In the last 10 years, across all of Columbia, we've paid out over $1.2 billion to minority, women, and local construction trade firms. On the Manhattanville project alone, since it started in 2008, over 5 million hours have been worked. And we track those in the categories of whether they were worked by minorities, women, minority women, local. And so that's just some of the tracking and documenting that we do. We also have several programs that help sort of build our bench of minority and women local companies. Our CU Grow Vendor Development Program is one. This program is run out of my office and it's in its 5th year. Each year we bring in 20 firms that are minority, women, or local that exist in the built environment. And we say that because it's not just trades firms. It could be suppliers or architects or engineers, professional services company. And we work with them. We've assigned them a unique coach. Each one of them has a dedicated coach. We work with them to build up the capacity of their businesses. We introduce them to procurement opportunities, and then they write a 3-year growth plan to sort of create a blueprint of how they're going to grow and manage their business for the next 3 years. But one of the benefits of the program is that they become a vendor of Columbia University once they finish the program. And this allows us to continually include firms that are diverse in our vendor pool. We've had 62 firms graduate over the last 4 years. We have a cohort of 21 firms in place now, and we've awarded $49 million to those firms thus far since they've gone through the program. We also participate in a worker capacity program. It's a pre-apprenticeship program called Pathways to Apprenticeship. And we work with partners like the City of New York, West Harlem Development Corp, and Pathways to Apprenticeship itself to bring aboard 20 new workers who are interested in becoming union workers. They go through an apprenticeship program. The Pathways program helps them to study for the test that they have to take to become a union member, or any interview that they would have to go through. They get their first tool bag from the program as they go out to participate. And this has been a very, very successful program. At our last graduation, our oldest worker was 54 years old, and his mother was there to watch him graduate. and he was one of the first candidates to be placed with a union. So literally, these people's lives are changed. They're making uh, a good wage, and they are able to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do before. If you want to see more about this, you can click on the link here and it'll tell you more about the program. Another important aspect of our Manhattanville campus is that it has award-winning communications. I think one of our communications team might be on the call right now. I thought I saw Noah Lichtman's name, but he and his group make sure that we get information out to the community about what's going on with the construction projects. We want them to be aware of what's happening so they can, kind of avoid any noise or any large movements on the campus. They do a monthly newsletter. They post information about the construction on the neighbor's website, and make sure that people are aware of what's going on with the project. And I think that's a great component of what we've done with Manhattanville, because the communications are frequent. They answer questions from people who write into them about what's happening. And there's just a really good exchange of information. And our supplies are also part of the MWL effort. We use an MRO company, a maintenance supply provider. They're embedded in Columbia, called Synovos. And we buy all kinds of construction equipment, janitorial supplies, bathroom goods. It's about $14 million on an average year. Some years are higher, some years are lower, but they have a goal as well, which we place on them, to provide 30% or purchase 30% of all their goods and services from minority women and local firms. And year to date for 2021, they are trending at 28.8% of their purchasing. So they're very close to meeting that 30% goal. This is my fun slide. Christina Salto on our team creates this. Sometimes it's a little dry reading all the fine print to see what the benefits are and, reading the reports. So she created a graphical document that we update, or she updates each year, to talk about the benefits and how we've performed on them. So what we can say is, since the agreement has been in place, we've awarded 275 scholarships for summer camp. We've had 124 athletic clinics. The shuttle bus has given 42 rides to people from the community. We've done over 12,000 training sessions at the Employment Information Center and done over 500 dental screenings for, for seniors. So this is one of my favorite graphics because it shows in a very easy to see way some of the impacts. We've also provided over 1,400 scholarships to Columbia courses for lifelong learners and course auditors. And so this is a slide that really helps you to see in a snapshot what some of the benefits have been. Another part of what we were committed to do when we decided to build the Manhattanville campus is that we wanted to embrace some of its history. And so there is an interpretive exhibit. It exists in the Nash building, and we've documented the history of the Manhattanville area, which you might be surprised to know at its earliest inception was the center of the milk industry. It had a really long history of being greatly positioned, being right by the river to be able to move milk up and down the river. But there was also a very serious public health crisis that occurred in this area. The exhibition examines the 50-year crusade to turn milk from a deadly fluid into a mainstay of a healthy diet. This was just prior to pasteurization, and so it coincides with that, that process. The milk reform really created a movement of community activists, and it was not a segregated Black mothers and white mothers working together to try to solve this problem for their babies. The movement was very successful, and it is documented in a exhibit that's in the Nash building on the first floor. So you can go to the link. I would urge you to see it and really understand how important this area was to that particular industry. At the end of the day, Columbia believes that we will only grow successfully if our community grows along with us. And that's our goal, to think of all the ways that we can integrate the community into the great legacy of this project. So that's it for me, and I would love to take your questions.
Thank you, Tanya. As always, that was spectacular. What would you say has been your biggest challenge to date in, so the commitments were made and, it's been around for a while. What are one or two of the biggest day-to-day obstacles that you face in implementing this program successfully?
Well, there are small challenges and large challenges. The commitments are assigned to various departments, and they're not funded. So it's what you have to do as part of your department's own budget. And each year somebody leaves Columbia, for whatever reason, the commitment holders change. And so we have to orient them to the what's required and the documents and the documentation that we need them to record so we can have it for the report. So that's a small challenge. One of our larger challenges, believe it or not, is getting people to take us up on the benefits. We have been working for many years to get more course auditors and lifelong learners from the housing developments, Manhattanville houses and grant houses around Columbia. And it is a challenge. We have very few folks in those developments taking us up on the course auditing, and we would like to have more. And we've been thinking of ways to do outreach that might be more unique, that would attract them. But that's some of our challenges, is trying to find ways to get people to use more of the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's possible that as a result of COVID and putting more things online, that might be a way to reach more people in the community if we can somehow, get them attuned to the Zoom opportunities that are out there to participate? And maybe
ironically, we had a record year of lifelong learners and
in 2020
course auditors. Christine, do you remember how many we had last year?
I think it was close to 500 people took advantage.
Yeah, and I think one was from those two developments. But we're pursuing a question mark, because what we did find is that community impact also had a record year of people getting their task, which is the GED certificate, online. They had over 150 people get their GED online this summer, and they have a waiting list of over 300. So maybe the university point is not where some of these folks fall in. Maybe it is at that task level.
Yeah.
So we're looking into that to see how many of those task diplomas that were awarded actually came from folks in Grant and Manhattanville houses, because I think that'll help us understand it more.
I think we have a few questions in the chat.
Okay. So we have. I had a question. There are some residents in the Harlem and Upper Manhattan who have limited access to digital and online communications. Are there any initiatives where Columbia is able to reach out to the community with your communications outside of the standard digital email communications and websites? Yes, we do some of that. Prior to COVID, we have a newsletter that goes out twice a year from Government and Community Affairs that advertises the commitments and how you can access them. We also did some flyering in the various housing developments around Columbia, putting up flyers on the community center billboards. The community centers at Grant and Manhattanville both closed down due to COVID, so we've not been able to do that. But when we're able to do that again, we will restart that process because we do know that not everybody has access to digital communications. Could you speak more to the K through 12 Education Center? I'm going to see if Christine can help me with this one. Christine, can you talk about the K through 12 Education Center?
Sure. So I'm guessing that you're referring to the education lab that's on the ground floor of the Jerome Elgreen building, and that's run by the Zuckerman Institute. I know that they do a number of programming, pre-COVID with having school trips come to the center for field trips, and they also run a Saturday science program that I know unfortunately has had to gone virtual for the past year, but normally they run a lot of programming focused on brain science because that's what the Zuckerman Institute focuses on, but tailoring it to school-age children through a number of events. I'll also put the link to their website in the chat because they have way more information on that. But yeah, they're open to field trips, school groups, camp groups, and they have the scientists from the Zuckerman Institute come down and do hands-on experiments with the kids when they're able to, obviously.
And they also have a partnership with the BioBus, which has been going on for quite a few years. There's another question. I wanted to know how the program goals change or pivot to be mindful of changes in society, but still be mindful of your long-term goals, such as the pandemic or Black Lives Matter. It's interesting because this is an experiment that I don't know that has ever been done, that someone has written a document and a list of commitments and that they're going to be carried out over a 30-year period, right? And we know things change over time. Thus far in the first 12 years that we've been managing the commitments, they have not changed significantly. Some of them have had to change because of changes at Columbia in either how or where we deliver the programming, but we have not had any significant changes to the agreement as a result of the social issues that we're experiencing right now. Okay, I think there's another question.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I was interested in how your office fits into the university and your interactions with other departments and other schools, and if this is something that's part of the agreement to build off of, because I know the Manhattanville campus has some different schools participating and be housed in Manhattanville. So is that part of the agreement? And could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My office is housed under the Executive Vice President of Columbia University Facilities and Operations, David Greenberg. He oversees all construction, public safety, real estate, campus services. There are a few more departments that I can't remember them all. But we sit there because that's where the Manhattanville Development Group reports up to. And our work is very integral in the construction. We literally create meeting schedules And we meet each week with each of the CMs, each month with the CMs that are working on the project during the period that the project is being bought out, because we want to watch that MWL and how the bids go. We want to make sure they've got the firms on there. We're very hands-on. And then we move that to quarterly once the project is completely bought out, to be able to see that it's coming in at those numbers that were planned. So we're very integrated into the construction process. We also provide a fair amount of support to sponsored research, which you may know has diversity requirements in their grants. And so we help them in finding firms that can support that and make sure they reach their goals. When we talk about the different departments and that we interact with, it's vast. Some of these commitments sit in the office of the provost, some sit in government community affairs, some in athletics. You know, wherever the commitment is being delivered, we have interaction with those either schools or departments, and a point person there to make sure that the data is being gathered properly and that we can get to it to provide our report each year. Does that answer your question, Jeremy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. If you want to just ask a question, you don't have to put it in the chat.
Hey, Tanya, you've been around this related kinds of initiatives for a while. As you probably know, there are people who are skeptical of it, you know, that the numbers are manipulated. People, you know, hire certain people who are in, you know, not high level jobs, that, you know, the diversity is primarily at the bottom and in the lower paid jobs. And you may have actual documentation, but just your own gut sense, anecdotally, how much of a problem is that, do you think? I mean, how much of the numbers are skewed to the bottom rather than well sprinkled throughout the hierarchy of the contractors?
You know, Bill, that's a complicated question. What I will say is, with regard to people being skeptical, we recognize that that could be an issue from the start. And so one of the things that we do is we publicly post all of our numbers. They're publicly available for anybody to go and see, down to the company, the name of the company, what trade that they offered, and how much we paid them. Okay. So if you are interested in, you know, that detailed reading, each quarter we post that report, and it's on the Columbia website for anyone to see. So no one can say, oh, you're not really, you know, doing this. Yeah, there's the company, and here's what we paid them, and we're making these numbers. So it really takes a lot out of that argument. But it's true that because of the universe of firms that are minority, women, and local, we sometimes do have a problem getting firms in certain trades. For instance, there are not a lot of minority firms that build curtain walls. And it's a very specific and complex trade. And so we recognize that we're not going to often have folks in that trade that are minority, women, or local. But I think that there is a good balance of workers across many levels. More and more Black and brown and women and local workers are coming into the unions these days. So we're seeing that as a really great trend. And so my only response to that is that we just try to be as transparent as possible. The other thing I really want to talk to, and this is sort of a wonky point in the diversity space, but most government agencies report the awards that they've made to minority and women-owned businesses. We report spend. We report the dollars that actually go out the door, which is a greater measurement of impact.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's another you know, way that we decided we wanted to be as transparent as possible to show what is actually occurring, not what got awarded, but maybe didn't actually get procured, you know?
This will be my promise. I won't say anything else. So Columbia, going back to the proposed gym in the park outside my apartment, Morningside Park, where maybe that was the low ebb of Columbia's reputation in the community. How do you sense, have we made progress since that time? And has the Manhattanville project helped move Columbia's reputation up in this community in which we are located?
Now, see, Bill, you're going to get me in trouble because I don't do politics. I'm not like the political person. I'll give you my opinion. The way this campus was designed, that it would not have gates or walls or anything preventing entry, I think was very thoughtful and helped to dispel some of what happened in the past, right? We want everybody to be welcome on this campus anytime they want to walk on it. The fact that they've created specifically spaces for public enjoyment and opened the first floors of every building, so some level of public engagement. I think that was all with the mindset that this is where we need to go now. I'm going to have to ask you to get the official political
No, that's
answer
great.
to that from
No, that's
another
great.
person or government community affairs, but that's just my opinion.
No, thank you.
I just wanted to also add that I thought that the design of the glass exterior walls was also to make it more inclusive to the community. That was a thought in the design of a lot of the newer buildings going up to make it more welcoming to the community.
Yeah.
Instead of the gates or the bars that
I
we
would say, thank you, Ray. That's true. I would say if you haven't been in these buildings, take the time to go and visit them. Architecturally, there are some details that are simply magnificent. We had one of the best architects in the world, the Renzo Piano Design Studio, create the design for the JLG and Lenfest buildings. It's a glass building, and on the floor that is parallel, that is right next to the subway, if you turn your back away from the subway, a train can go by and you will not hear it, which is pretty phenomenal. They have this double glass design on the windows because remember, very sensitive research is being done there. So the building had to have a lot of really important details that kept it as stable as possible with as little interference from the exterior. So it's quite remarkable.
Tanya, could you also speak to the program? Because I think it's a little off topic, but it is on topic. Is speaking to the fact that you have the Columbia University Grow program that also facilitates the preparation process for minority, local, women-owned firms to participate in that revenue that you talked about. I think that also enabling these enterprises to happen on a social level is important. I think to those that aren't aware that we at the university are actually doing that. I think that's a very interesting point also in our perspective.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about CU Grow, but one of the things I can say is that the firms that walk in the door when they start the program are not the same firms that walk out. The change is so visible and so tangible of how they've grown confidence, how they understand that they're not just the owner, but the CEO of their firm, the changes that they've made within their company, and the aha moments that they've had about how they can do better and more effective things to run their business. It's a joy to watch the transformation every year, and it just never gets old. So yeah, thank you. Somebody has asked a question, I want to recognize it. If I had seen the demand letter from Columbia's mobilized African diaspora that was sent to Lee. I have Lee Bollinger last year. I have seen it, but I am not going to speak on that. You would do better to get an answer about Columbia's impressions of that from our Office of Government and Political Affairs. As I mentioned, I don't do politics. Any other questions or
Tanya,
Yes.
Ellie Amder here. Nice to be with you for the first time.
Hi, Ellie.
Tanya, I seem to remember way back when Manhattanville was in its nascent stages. And we all, I'm sure, remember this, that there was a lot of pushback from different members of the community and from the city at large. Looking back now over a decade, what do you think were one or more or some of the sticking points that turned out to be major successes now that we look back over a decade that just met resistance, which major change always meets anyway? But were there some that met resistance that turned out to be just slam dunk, home run type of things?
Well, I think the drafting of the agreements and the commitments that we made was an important starting point because they saw that we were going to invest in the community. I think there was probably still skepticism until, even a few years ago, until they saw we were doing what we said we would do. That 5 million hours of work on the project has brought amazing, impact to the workers, that we are doing what we said we would do when we said we would engage minority, women, and local firms. All of the commitments that we promised to provide to the community. And some of them are really important when you think about it, because a lot of people were worried about displacement and that the campus would cause the rents and property values to increase beyond the affordability of people living in the area. And so having those two full-time attorneys to work on housing issues has been very important. And they do quite a bit of work every year in supporting residents in the West Harlem community. So I think those were important things that people are seeing the benefits of. I guess there are others. I can't think of anything immediately, but those are just a few that come to mind.
Tanya, thanks.
Yeah. Other questions?
I think there were two that we didn't cover.
In the
One
chat?
from Tanya. On a personal level, could you speak to the skill sets you flex on a daily basis to foster collaboration and excel in your role?
Yeah, we do a lot of meetings and a lot of negotiating, a lot of meeting in the middle, so much of our work requires collaboration. And we are also, my department is also involved in bringing new vendors aboard for the university in the construction and facilities area. And so those are daily negotiations when you're trying to figure out, do we need this firm? Should we bring them aboard? Shall we have them in? Do they provide services that are of value? We get a lot of push from the top for people saying, well, I want this firm to be a vendor. And I can say, well, I already have 58 architects, but negotiating those sorts of things, requests from folks around the university, requests for data that we don't typically provide. We have to make those decisions about, whether we'll make an exception. There are just a lot of decision points that have to be managed in the entirety of it. So I would say a lot of it is, first of all, listening, working well with others, deciding how we want to approach things, making sure it doesn't set new precedent. So yeah, I would say those are some of the skills that I have to use each day. Was there another question, Jeremy?
I think that was the last one. Oh, Kathleen asked, hopefully we can have an in-person event in the fall in the new facility.
That would be great. Once we can get together again, I would love to have you all see. We used to do tours of Manhattanville, and we would start with the interpretive exhibit, showing them the history of the area. I miss that so much, I have to say. And so they got a sense of it. And then we would go through each of the new buildings and kind of show them a snapshot of what was being done there. And that was always so fun. And I look forward to a time that we can do that again.
Well, I'll make a commitment from our side that hopefully, God willing, this fall we'll be almost back to normal. And we can have a food for thought that will be Zoom, but it'll be in person as well. And we'll have it at Manhattanville. And maybe we'll have a panel of our some of our speakers from the virtual world and bring them to the real world. And of course, Tanya, you'd have to be our lead panelist.
Well, I would love to have some of my colleagues join us who
Perfect.
are working on the project from different perspectives, because there's so much more than what I talked to you about today. But this is the part that I'm involved with, that I'm, authorized to talk about. But there's a whole other perspective from the government community affairs viewpoint, from the actual construction viewpoint, as well as people who are running some of the programs. So I think they'd love to talk with you more. There's fantastic work being done across the board.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone, how grateful we are for you personally, and your leadership in this. And as Columbia is already, 250 plus years old. When we're 350 years old, one of the high points, I think, in Columbia's history will be the Manhattanville project. And you'll be one of the stone carved images somewhere, someplace.
Well, Bill, there are a lot of people who did a lot of hard work other than me, so I really have to acknowledge them. I mean, Laverna Fountain, my former boss, was just relentless in getting us through all the meetings and the ULURP process. And, Joe Iannuso, who was the former executive vice president, obviously Lee Bollinger, and Maxine Griffith, so many people, some of which are no longer at the university, but just did a lot of work to get this moving. So we're just the shepherds to keep the train on the tracks.
Well, thank you, Tanya. We're so grateful to you and to everybody who has been with us today. We'll keep our tradition. Jeremy, you'll be the official closer of the event, if you will.
Sure. Well, thank you, Tanya. It was a very interesting presentation. I'm an undergrad. I did Columbia College undergrad. I always had questions about Manhattanville. So thank you for that really deep dive. And we're really proud of the work that you're doing. And I'm happy that your team joined us as well. And hopefully we can, as Bill said, have an event in the fall. Just a note to everyone, food for thought. We have a few more sessions coming up this month. So join us next week. And we're glad to have you all here. Take care, everyone.